listening to the first City Lacrosse podcast, brought to you every week from the Florida Panhandle. Coach John and Coach JP explore the best and worst of lacrosse on the Gulf Coast. So strap your helmets on and let's go.
And welcome back to the podcast once again. I am Coach John here with my co-host, Coach JP, special guest Tyler Scheeler, one of our officials from the Gulf Coast region out here. Welcome to First City Lacrosse Podcast, the second best lacrosse podcast on the planet. We're glad you're here. JP, welcome. Tyler, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Wow, you guys are so talkative. All right.
Thanks for having
Tyler,
me, John.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. I'm going to give you a little bit of credit. Yeah. I'm going to give you a little bit of credit because you're coming off a long weekend, a long tournament. But tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Tell us, obviously, your name is right there. And tell us what you do. Tell us what you do outside of lacrosse officiating, how long you've been doing it, so on and so forth. Hit me with your stuff.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks again for having me. It's really kind of humbling, and I'm honored that you reached out and asked me to do this. As you said, my name's Tyler. I'm currently in the Navy. I've been in the Navy a little over 23 years. I work at a organization called the Naval Survival Training Institute here in Pensacola. We essentially provide survival training for aircrew. There's about 250 of us within our organization. I just happen to be the officer in charge of that right now. I got lucky enough to have that job, and it's my last one before I retire in November. And so just been very fortunate with an awesome career. Been in a lot of really cool places. The Navy's allowed me to, do what they say, see the world, right? And so I've had a chance to do that. And it kind of put me in Pensacola and allowed me to actually become a lacrosse official. And so I've been doing this I think this will be my 12th. I actually started reffing lacrosse in 2014. I think that's when West Florida got their first high school team. And my son was a sophomore at West Florida and started playing this lacrosse thing. And I had heard about lacrosse, had never seen a game, definitely had not ever officiated a game. And we signed him up for a clinic here in Pensacola just to get him some experience before the season started. Because, when we had that first meeting with Coach Luciano, they were taking everybody, right? And so he was like, I'm all in, and Braden was all in. And so we took him to a clinic, and he got some practice and did some things. And there was a gentleman there by the name of Jeff Sherman, who I know you know. And he was talking about, hey, this is how, the officiating thing works. And I just grabbed him afterwards and said, how do you become a lacrosse official? And he said, you just do these things. And then he asked me how, have I ever officiated anything? And I got my start officiating as a hockey official. And so I'm originally from North Dakota. Obviously, the Navy brought me down here back in 2001. And, like I said, we bounced around, but this is home for us. And so I played high school hockey in North Dakota. That's what we do in the winter. It's if you don't play hockey, you get to go play basketball. It's what everybody does in North Dakota. And so I was good enough to play, but never going to go anywhere with it, right? I was just a forward, a right winger that could skate and do some things. And so when I graduated high school, I started coaching. And then one of the gentlemen up there asked me if I wanted to ref. And I said, yeah, I'll try that. And it just kind of clicked. It was something that, I don't know, I think I'm okay at it. I tend to I enjoy being on the field. I love reffing, which is kind of weird, I think, because it can suck sometimes, to say the least. And so, but I just enjoyed being on the rink and continuing to skate. And it was never, and I'll talk about this later, it's never about me. I just like being part of the game. And you work with the coaches, you work with the players, and you earn their respect. And it just worked out well. But that came to an end when I came down here. I had reffed off and on throughout my career in the Navy in hockey. And when we came here, I was still doing some reffing for the men's league downtown in Pensacola. But that kind of got old. And so when Braden started playing lacrosse, and I asked Jeff about it, and he put me on a high school game before I probably was ever ready. It was Gulf Breeze and somebody, and I didn't really know what was going on because, back then in 2012, it was really hard to even watch lacrosse, right? Like you just couldn't turn on ESPN and find that. And it's amazing how you can now. And I'll talk about how important that is. but I just really watched a lot of YouTube, a lot of US lacrosse videos, and I just read the book. And so that's kind of how I got here. And that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
That's amazing. First of all, let me say I appreciate your service. I know
Thanks.
a lot of our listeners do as well. Would you say 23 years in the Navy?
Yeah, 23 years this past October. Yeah. When I retire in November, it'll be 24. So
that's no joke, man. That's no joke.
Well,
and as a military, I was going to say, as a military person, an aircrew member, I appreciate your service as an aircrew survival instructor or the officer in charge of that school. I know for a fact that the techniques and the training that you guys provide saves lives, and it's really some amazing stuff. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your service as well on the field. I know you've reffed, I don't know, we've been doing this for a while now. Yeah, you probably reffed over 100 of my games at this point, and I haven't always been easy on you, but I always appreciate when you're there. So
I think it's something we'll talk about. It's never personal, right? It's never
personal. No, it's never personal.
It can't be.
Nope.
You know, it's there's things that happen during the game that are in the heat of the moment, and that just is what it is. And you move on. You gotta have really, really tough skin to be a ref, I think.
Yeah. JP and I just talked about this last time. It's like, you know, it seems like sometimes the coaches and especially the parents who take it personally are the ones sort of with a very limited amount of experience. You know, it's usually not the brand new ones, right? Because they're just still in the learning phase. It's usually the ones with maybe 1 or 2 years of experience. So they think they've got a good handle on it, but really all they've done is like crack the door open to this sea of knowledge that's out there. So, all right, real quick, we're going to let everyone get to know you real quick. So I'm going to give you some rapid fire stuff, and then we're going to get into the meat of this. So what book, what podcast, what YouTube, what kind of things are you watching, reading, getting into?
No, I appreciate that. As far as podcasts go, I love the Economist podcast. That's what I listen to on my way to work in the morning. It's a great way to just kind of remove myself from, I guess, just normal news, right? And kind of pull into something a little bit different. And so that's the one podcast I tend to gravitate to. As far as books, I'm a huge Malcolm Gladwell fan. You know,
there you go.
His books always provide a story and a message in a way that, you know, then telling the stories in the way he does, that's always awesome. And so I love his books. And I tend to gravitate towards, you know, being in the military, things related to history and leadership and those kinds of books, because that's part of what we do. I do like some fiction stuff, like I forget his name. I think it's Andy Weir that wrote The Martian. I think it's something like that. So that kind of thing. But honestly, right now, what I'm reading is the rule book. So it's that time of year for me where, you know, we do these fall tournaments, and that I typically take the whole summer off, you know, because the lacrosse season, when we get to it in the spring, I think I did something like 50 some games last year in high school.
Good Lord.
And I loved every minute of it, right? Like even when it was bad, I still love it. But and I don't mean bad like bad. It's just challenging sometimes. And so it's the summers I tend to take off and just like let it all go, right? And just and so that's when I'll read a little bit more. But now, honestly, I'm back in the book and reading the rule book again and reading the new rules and just trying to get my brain around it and kick the dust off, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, I hope the coaches and players who are listening to this take a minute to decide that if it's good enough for our officials, it's probably good enough for them to get back into the book as well. So that's good stuff. Do you have a favorite player, pro, college? Do you have a favorite? Is there an official you try to have pattern? I don't know if that's a thing for you guys or.
No, it is. You know, I can't think of all their names, but it doesn't even just have to be lacrosse, right? Like, so.
Yeah, anything.
But as for lacrosse officials, there's a gentleman by the name of Josh Blaisdell.
Okay.
He just did the national championship game. He was one of my observers at one of my officials clinics. And so I watch him when I can, but I'll watch all of them, right? Anytime I watch a lacrosse game, I typically watch the refs more than anything. And, you know, where they're going, what they're doing, how they're positioning themselves, what they're looking at, what they're calling, right? And at that level, it's a completely different game and so much more technical than some of the stuff we get down here where it's much more personal foul related. And so that's usually what I'm watching as far as the officials go. But Yeah, I watch a lot of hockey this time of year, and I have the Red Wings game on right now. That's my team is watching Detroit, and so hoping that they can figure it out and beat the Islanders tonight. But I'm a huge Steve Yzerman fan from back in the day. He's just an awesome player, and he just plays hockey, right? I like those kinds of athletes that in any sport, right? They're not celebrating. They just, yep, I scored a goal. I scored 100 of them, right? It's not my first one. And so he just plays hockey. You talk about football players like that just play football, and that's all they do. But so that's kind of the type of athletes that I tend to like and focus on. But yeah, huge hockey fan. I don't want to talk about my football team right now. They're terrible. So, and that might turn some of your viewers off if I tell you that
I mean, whatever.
I'm a lifelong Cowboys fan, and it hurts right now.
Okay.
It's just so bad. So
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I tend to do with sports, and I kind of like every sport. There's not a sport that I don't really enjoy watching and playing, and at least trying to do. Even golf, which kicks my butt.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all that. Let's get into some of your lacrosse stuff, specifically the officiating side. So you already kind of talked about like the early days, like you started in hockey, started as a hockey official, and then how you got involved, which is probably a lot like most of our, I got involved the same way at JP. He got involved the same way. Our kids actually are the ones who inspire us to do this and follow this path. It's a little bit of addiction, unfortunately. Like once you get a little taste, it's like, yeah. Oh yeah, JP, I could see it's just real. You know what I mean? Like it becomes part of you.
Yeah, definitely has.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to this season? Is there anything specific you're kind of like, you mentioned the rule change. Any specific rule changes that we as coaches or players should be watching out for? What are you guys focusing on?
No, I don't think so, honestly, and I haven't got into those completely yet. I've just been looking at the normal rule book, and so I'll get into the USA Lacrosse stuff this weekend. That's typically what I do over my breaks. Is I'll get into the US Lacrosse website. I'll start going through all the rules changes. I'll start building the training, and so I don't know that there's anything off the top of my head that I can think of. There'll be a couple new ones always every year, and we'll go through those with all the players and coaches. But you make a really interesting point. As a hockey player, I never read the rule book once. And I thought, well, I'll just start reffing hockey. I know all the rules. It's easy. And then you start reading the rule book and you're like, I know none of this. So much in that is in that rule book that you have no idea about. And one of the things that I love about lacrosse is the concept of advantage, disadvantage. And if there's a rule in the rule book that says this is a rule and this is a penalty, whether it's typically it's a technical foul, right? But if you didn't gain an advantage from it and it didn't affect the play in any way, I may not call that. If there's a offsides call that happened 50 yards away and the kid just happened to step on the line and had nothing to do with the play, they didn't gain an advantage. I probably won't call that. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the things that for new players, new coaches, that is just an interesting concept. And it took me a minute, right, to get that. Like, this is a rule. We have to call this. Well, did they gain an advantage? No? Okay, cool. Then we just keep playing, right? If they did, I stop the play and I give them the ball. And so I love that concept of lacrosse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we absolutely did.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, JP was just saying, we talked about that last night because we mentioned it, and I was like, Tyler's probably going to tell us this tomorrow. Yeah. But we talked about that specific concept, and it falls back into that, like you were saying, JP. Like, it's just if it doesn't change the outcome of the play, like if the only purpose of making the call is to stop the game and restart the game, but the team with possession keeps possession, are they really going to want to stop the play and then restart? They're not. Like, as a coach, I can tell I don't want play to stop. I want to keep going. I don't. There's no penalty there.
Right.
So,
and it's the other piece of that I think is really tough, though, sometimes is it's different at a 10U level than it is at like a high school level. Right. Yeah. So that's something that we as officials, it's a challenge for us, and that concept at a 10U level, I'm probably not going to apply. if it's a penalty if there's a foul at 10U, I'm probably just going to call it almost every time.
Yeah.
And, we tend to, that's where most of our newer officials go. And that's where you have the newest parents. And honestly, a 10U game can be the hardest game in the world. Some of my college games have been significantly easier than a 10U game on a weekend youth tournament.
Yeah.
Because it's just a completely different game. And so, but that concept, that's the one thing I hope that coaches and players start to understand. And they get it, but it takes some time. Right. And so, yeah. But as far as looking forward to the season, I'm looking forward to getting, our new refs out there, finding some new folks. It's something that we always are challenged with in this area is finding, new refs and keeping them on the field, especially at the youth level. I love getting the youth refs out there, but we lose them too because it's hard, and it's my son used to ref, right, and I'm trying to get him back out there, and he had some really tough games, and he's just going to take a break for a while, and so hopefully we can get him back out because he's a really good ref.
Yeah, but, he is a good ref. Yeah, I'll 100% agree with you, especially for being as young as he is and relatively low experience. I don't think I can't recall a single incident of ever. There's I think most of the refs are actually really, really good. I don't think I've ever really had major problems with any of the refs. And getting into it and knowing the officials, I think, is a huge part of it. And just being around the game for a long time, you really get to know these guys, and you kind of get to know everybody has a style. And what coaches also need to understand, coaches need to understand that refs have a style, and coaches also need to understand that the refs already know you. They talk, they know exactly what they're getting into. They know what to expect from you. You are not going to surprise them with anything. You can sit there and you can be quiet as a church mouse on the sideline, or you can scream your head off. It is absolutely not going to change how the game is officiated. Because like what did I say yesterday, JP, about the officials? How much do they care about the outcome of the game?
Exactly. You said
they don't care at all.
No. Less than 5%.
No, they don't care at all.
No,
they could care less who wins, and that's the thing. It's like, oh, they're screwing us over. No, man, they're really not. They're just, and it drives me nuts. I know you've heard this 1,000 times, Tyler, and I know JP is going to cut me off here because he's got some questions for you. But I tell you, like, how many times have even me on the sidelines, like I'm like 50, 60 yards away from the play, 70 yards away maybe. I'm like, wow, that looked like a push. And then, there's Tyler, there's somebody else, the ref 5 yards away. And I have to remind myself, like, he's on top of that play. If it was a call, he would have made the call, So unfortunately, not every coach believes that.
Yeah. I mean, but we make mistakes too, right? And I think that's one of the most important things. I think one of the, and you'll probably get to it, what do I tell a new official is just be humble, right? And if you make a mistake, just own it. It's okay. You will. I've never reffed a perfect game, right? Just like as coaches, you probably never coached a perfect game. Players have never played a perfect game. I have never, ever once reffed a perfect game. There is always something that I look back on. I'm like, I probably missed that, because I might not have been looking at the right spot or looking over here. And it happens. It does. Yeah. And when you miss it and you missed it or you made a bad call, just own it. And the beauty of lacrosse is a lot of times we can fix it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that was one of the hardest things about hockey as a hockey official is when your arm goes up to make a call, you are stuck. There is no take backs. You are going to eat that and you're going to die on that call or you're going to live with that call. Either way, it's going forward. And so with lacrosse, if I do something, almost usually I can fix it, but if you make stuff up, if you don't own it, if you don't know the rules and you try to apply it in a way that the coaches most of the time know the rule. And if you try to apply that in a way that is total BS, you're going to lose all credibility, and so that's something that I try to impart on them instantly, especially when we get new officials and even old ones, right? Even the guys that have been around a while. It's like, you make a mistake, just own it. It's okay. All right. It's like, yep, that one's on me. I got it. I screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's, and this is the last thing I'll say before I know JP's got some questions that he's going to want me to shut up for, but
Well, probably me too.
the last thing I'll say
You've answered a lot of them, like without even asking them questions. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
you've already talked about.
I just appreciate that you and the other officials, when you do make a call, you do your best to make the right call. And if it's wrong, you'll correct it. Like that is something I really respect. Like you take the time to almost, we don't have the benefit of instant replay, of course. And,
Yeah.
that's probably one of the worst things for sports in general, but you're making a split second decision with the information you have with, a snapshot of time and from your particular angle.
Right.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, let's just take a breath. He's doing the best he can with what he's got there. Let's just, it's just part of the game. You know what I mean?
Is.
So
I think the thing you mentioned there that really is the angle, right? The perspective I have.
Yeah.
And I've said this 100 times, especially when I'm observing an official. I'm sitting in the stands, right? And I'm taking notes and watching what they're doing. I'm the best ref in the world from the stands.
Sure.
You
All
can
of them
see
are.
everything up there, right? The perspective you have in the stands is so much better than on the field. And I don't think people truly understand that. When I'm looking at one player through, 9 other players maybe? And so the perspective on the field is completely different than in the stands. And it's honestly harder on the field. So for sure. Plus I'm running, I'm moving. Yeah, all the things. So it's hard, but we try to do is you're right, John. Everybody walks on that field. I want to do a good job for both teams, right? That's my mindset every day is like, I want to be fair. Well, first of all, keep it safe and be fair, and just do a good job as best I can every time. So,
yeah. All right, JP, I'll shut up. What do you got? I know you've got a list of questions for him.
Yeah, you're good. Well, you can't tell any parents that it's easier in the stands. I can tell you that because they'll take that and go with it.
They don't know any better, most of them.
Yeah, they
right?
don't.
So this, and it's not their fault. I'm not trying to be derogatory in any way, but most of them just don't know, and it's an emotional thing because their kids out there, and I get that. My kid was out there before, and it is, and it's hard sometimes being up there and watching it happen, and even when you do know, it's hard. Yeah, for all the reasons I just said. Watching my kid play was always the hardest thing. And like, why don't you call that? But I never, so that's a golden rule, as an official, I don't say boo about them. So, and normally I go sit away from everybody. I'm sorry, JP, I cut you off.
It's all good, man. So like by trial and error, like what do you think helps you be a better official and what hasn't over your years, like between hockey and lacrosse?
I think the thing that's helped me be a better official, the first thing is just knowing the rules to the max extent possible, right? And that's why I'm always in the rule book, always refreshing, always, going back and like, there's so many little nuances in there. And a lot of times none of it happens, right? But the one time it does, and you're like a stick breaks during a shot. What do I do with that? Oh, crap. Because it'll happen, I made a call this weekend. It is the first time in 12 years I've ever made this call. A player went down, he tripped. There was no foul off the face-off, and we had already called possession. He had the ball in his cross, and he was on the ground with the ball tucked to his chest. And he stood up and he tucked it to his chest and he just kept running. And you can't do that. But I've never seen it before, right? And so I was like, oh crap, that just happened. And so I just turned the ball over, right? Total advantage gained by just tucking the ball to his chest because nobody could hit him. So just little things like that, I think that have made me, at least to the best of my ability, a better official is just, and honestly, I think never having played the game, I have to go read the rule book and I have to watch all the YouTube videos and I have to go on US Lacrosse. And I have to watch the players and then the footage and the film and like, okay, what are they going to do here? Trying to anticipate the game. And, I'm much better than that as I was 12 years ago. But, when is the foul going to happen, right? When are they going to go off sides? When is the push going to happen? Being able to anticipate that. And so just watching the game will make you a better official, I think. But officiating for the most part is when you get to the high school level, it's more about it's more about just people skills, honestly, and working with coaches and working with players and having thick enough skin to come underneath when a coach is lighting you up and try to calm the situation down. I don't always do a good job at that because it's emotional for us too, right? And so when someone's screaming at you, sometimes you need to match that just to get through to them. And typically it's not I'm yelling at them. It's just to like get their attention to the point where it's like, hey, just listen to me for a second. And then you try to calm it down. And so most of it, almost all of it, to John's point of just getting to know everybody, 90% of it, once you know the rules, is just working with the people in the game and knowing that they are just people and that we're all here just trying to get through, what is it, 48 minutes of a game. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You said you've been coach or refereeing for like 12 years. So what would you say to your first or second year as a referee looking back?
What about it? I missed the...
You said you've been reffing for 12 years. So looking back, what would you say to yourself as a first or second year?
Oh, yeah.
Referee?
Study the mechanics more. At that point, I think that if I make a bad call and I'm in the right spot, I can typically sell it easier. And so that's the thing that I harp on with all of our officials, new, young, old, veteran, is mechanics. The rules don't matter if you're in the wrong spot. And if you can't run the field, you need to think about that, especially in the higher games, right? And so being in the right spot at the right time and knowing where to be, mechanics, when we go to our high level lacrosse camps for officials, it's never about the rules, ever. They never once asked me during those clinics, why didn't I call this or why did I call that? They're always like, why are you here? What are you looking at? Why aren't you where you're supposed to be? It's always about mechanics. And so that's what my biggest thing to all the new officials is: learn the rules, absolutely, but read the mechanics book too, because that tells you where to be and what to do and how to look and just how to be on the field.
Well, JR, I'm going to back this one up. This question is for you too, though. How do you feel about young referees versus older referees? Because a lot of the younger referees we've either coached or watched play, so we know their history.
Yeah.
Versus older referees, we don't know their history. So, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
or they have a different experience playing a game because the rules when they were playing were considerably different, especially with regarding like physical contact, things like that.
I mean, they're different in the last 12 years, the contact, right? And especially when it comes to contact to the head and neck, you can get ejected very easily now in this game with contact to the head and neck. There's just zero, it just doesn't, and we miss it, but the idea is that it's not supposed to happen. They don't want that as the game, And so even at the college level, when I go to the NILOA clinics, it's the same thing. If that happens, they want it out of the game. And that's one of the biggest things that they put into their game is the replay to evaluate that contact to the head and neck. And if they make that call in the field and they go look at the camera and we say, yep, that's contact to head and neck, and you can be ejected from the replay. So it's just something that's so different than what it used to be. So, and I cut you off, John. So.
No, you didn't. That's good stuff, man. I wanted to actually go back in time a little bit. One thing you had said, the people skills portion of being an official, and from a coach's perspective, and I think what a lot of people would want to know, so from a coach's perspective, if you and I, as you're the official, I'm the coach, you and I are having a significant disagreement on a call on the field or a non-call for whatever reason, I can be ejected from the game depending on my behavior. 100% chance. My concern, I think I've brought this up before, and it's not meant to be like I'm right and you're wrong. That's not the whole point of it. But I think a lot of coaches feel like there is no recourse for an official, and it doesn't happen very often. Listen, it's I would say 99% of the officials, 99.9% of the officials are really good. And like we talked about JP, they don't care about the outcome of the game. They want to make sure that it's played safely, that it's played fairly, and that the number of players that started the game also finished the game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But there's no, if an official, the small percentage of the time that it happens, or, if a coach feels like he's being unfairly judged for whatever reason, there often feels like there's no recourse for that coach. So what's the best way for a coach to approach either you or another official? Because there's always going to be disagreements because we have, it's the same reason police get multiple statements from witnesses, because everybody sees something different.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for me as a coach to approach you as the official, be like, I disagree with that call.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw something completely different.
Yeah. I think the best way to do it is ask me why I called what I called, right? Because if you look at the rule book, and this is where, that's where you start. The rule book basically says you can't argue a call as a coach, right? Now, you arguing a call and us having a discussion on what I called is completely different. And so I think that most of the time, an official is going to be much more receptive to a coach saying, hey, I saw you call the push. I think it was from the side. Can you tell me what you saw? And they'll tell you. They should, right? They should explain to you what they called. And a lot of times I'll do it, and I think we've done this where I've been standing on the field as the trail in front of your box watching the play, and we're having a discussion in the back of my head, right? And you're talking to me, and we're just, this is what I saw. Yep, I didn't think his hands were too high. I thought his stick was where it's supposed to be. He didn't hit him in the head. He did hit him in the head. The trip was not a trip. It was a hold. But where we as officials get in trouble is we let our emotions drive that conversation too, and we don't listen, right? We put up walls because we don't want to hear it, and that's not what we try to teach officials. We try to teach them that you need to listen to the coaches, but when the coaches come at you and they make it argumentative, that's where we tend to not engage, right? I don't want to talk to you in that moment because it's not going to end well, because I have to stop it at some point, right? I can't let you just keep yelling at me no matter what it is. But I think that's for me personally, the best interactions with coaches are just like, hey, can you just tell me what you called there, right? Mm-hmm. I know you're probably not going to like it anyway, but at least you get an answer of what I called, right? And so I think that's kind of the way I go about it. It's not always that way, and you know that.
Yeah.
There are times where it's like, all right, I can't talk to you about this right now. That's enough, right? Especially after I've given an answer, and then that keeps going. And so that's when the flags start flying. And I hate flagging coaches. I'll be honest with you. I just hate doing it. But sometimes you just gotta.
There is a I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but there is a technique out there from coaches that they will deliberately try to inspire a team or try to be like, I'm fighting for you guys. I need you to fight for me type of thing. And, the official is the natural target there because you're a common enemy.
Yeah.
For lack of a better phrase.
I understand where it comes from. And that's where, I always go back to, it's not personal, right? I try. Mm-hmm. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's just us trying to get through this moment in time, right? And just work through the disagreement. But at some point there's got to be an ending to it, because we just got to keep going, And so
games designed to be played fast.
Yeah, but we're just gonna keep going, and that's where I'm like, hey, I call what I called. You don't like it? I'm moving on. That's what I told you what I did, right? And so I had one of those this weekend where it was an illegal screen. The kid did not have his cross straight up and down. He had it sideways, but it had zero impact on what happened, right? It didn't influence the player at all. And he's like, why didn't you call that? Said, because nothing happened. He didn't touch him. Yep, you're right. He had his stick sideways, but it wasn't an advantage gained in any way. And he's like, that's a terrible call. I said, I'm moving on, and we just kept going. And so, but I told him what I saw and why I called or didn't call what I didn't call. And I knew he didn't like it. And but we just keep going.
Well, coaches are going to see only the calls that benefit them. They're never going to see any of the calls that go against them, right?
Well, that's my favorite one, right? Is when they're barking for a slash, and it's not, right? It's just the little taps from the pole, and at some point it does become a slash, right? And one of my favorite responses to that is like, you don't want me to call that on you, right? Because if I call that now on them, I have to call that on you, and that's not a penalty.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All guilty of that, though. About, hey, you're gonna call that slash. Hey, about that ward. We're all guilty of it. But with what you guys are talking about, refs versus coaches, coaches versus refs, we talked about sportsmanship last night. So, what is your definition of sportsmanship, and how that affects your job as a referee?
Are you talking about sportsmanship for refs?
In general, your definition, your idea of sportsmanship.
I think treat people like you want to be treated, right? It's the golden rule, and it applies pretty much everywhere. And so, it's treat people with respect. I think that one of the things I love about lacrosse is respect the game, right? It's about the game and just treating people like you want to be treated. It can be intense for everybody's, on the field, but I think that's really what it comes back to, is just respecting each other. Everybody's trying to do the same thing, just having respect for the other team.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I said last night to John, I said, it's all about remember where you came from. You know what I mean? That's part of sportsmanship to me.
Awesome. Well, man, this has been fun. One last question, and we're going to wrap up. I'll give you your night back. What is your, you said you're retiring from the Navy, and what's your lacrosse future look like? Are you staying in town? Are you moving on? You're going to continue officiating?
Sure. No,
Tell everybody what to expect.
We're Pensacolians, or whatever we call ourselves now.
Okay.
I've got my kids are here, my son and my daughter and their families, and my 3 grandkids. And so my wife has roots extremely deep here now. I left for about 3 years to go to a different job between 2019 and 2022. And so she stayed here, and those roots just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And with the kids here, I'm going to retire and just stay here. I'll ref lacrosse as long as I can run. I just love being part of the game and part of the sport and being on the field. It's never about me or the officials. A perfect game for me is when no one even knows I was there. And so that's what I try to do, is just show up and leave and like, wow, no one, who refed? I don't know. Who cares? Right. That's a perfect, but I'll keep doing that. I hope the college game continues to expand in the area. University of South Alabama's got a club team that they're putting together, and they're actually going to be in a league. So hopefully we get some of their games.
I heard they're going D2 in a couple of years. That'll be
awesome. So
yeah.
I'll continue to ref. I enjoy reffing college games. I wish I could get some more. It's just the area, and that's fine. But I just really enjoy reffing high school a lot, and being on the field with the kids and the young men of those teams, and just watching them grow and develop. And, when they step on the field as freshman and sophomore and they leave as seniors, and just watching the difference that you guys as coaches and what you do with them. And it's just a lot of fun to watch, and just being a part of it. And I always go out there. Some days it's hard, right? I think the other thing that folks tend to maybe forget is, like, we all have jobs, and so there's times where I literally just left work and I ate McDonald's on the way just to eat something, and I'm just putting my shoes on at the red light, just trying to get to the game. And so trying to flip that switch can be hard for some folks. We try to make, I want you to have the best game possible as a coach and as a team. And so, but some days are just like, man, I'm tired, and it's harder, but I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can. I just love being part of the game and being around the people and the coaches and the players. And it's always fun, just seeing people smile. And I like to smile when I'm reffing. So it helps me. If I smile all the time and I laugh all the time, you don't know if I'm laughing with you or at you. And so it's a good way to like have some humor during the game.
That's right.
Try to lighten it up a little bit, because sometimes it just gets so freaking intense. So just calm it down. But yeah. Awesome. And then go have a beer afterwards,
That's right. Yeah. Take the edge off. Well, this has been fun, man. I appreciate you taking some time out of your night to do this. Real quick, if people wanted to get in touch with you to ask about officiating, or just to kind of check out what you're doing, how do they find you?
I think the best way is either my email, and I don't know if you can drop that in the comments, which is totally fine with me.
Yep.
Or I'm on Facebook. You can find me there, I think. But really just my email. And if anybody has any desire to ref at all, we are always, always, always looking for refs. Well, every day. So would love to have anybody that wants to do it.
Awesome. JP, you got any parting shots for him?
No, I just recently signed up for the new USA Lacrosse rule change coming up December. So I'm ahead of the book too. So the webinar coming up. So
I saw that. I need to get on that too.
Yeah, we all do, I think.
Free, they should make everybody watch that.
That should be their plug. That's USA Lacrosse plug for you right there.
Absolutely.
There you go. All right, guys, this has been fun. I appreciate both of you. For everybody else listening, if you are looking to get involved in lacrosse, whether it's coaching, playing, or officiating, you know how to find us. We look forward to seeing you on the field. Get your reps in, be a good human, honor the game. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you, JP. John, thanks, buddy.
If you like what you hear, drop us a like and follow wherever you downloaded this podcast from, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at First City Lacrosse. Check back every week for more content. Thank you for being a part of the First City Lacrosse podcast.